And with that, we are underway here tonight. Been excited about having this particular guest on for quite a while now. Unfortunately, the topic that we're covering tonight, not one that I've been looking forward to, and being joined now by, I guess, how do I put this exactly? Outstanding record recording artist now, local celebrity, former uh, producer extraordinaire of 107.5 The Game here in Columbia, joined now by Michael Haney. Uh, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Outstanding recording artist. All yeah, we'll put it all in the bio. I'll
Recording
take it.
artist extraordinaire. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll go
I'll
with
take it
that.
all, man. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and before we kind of dive into the topic of the night, um, give us a little update. I mean, you've been gone now from Columbia. Uh, you've been off the air here in Columbia now for about already 11 years.
Approaching, yeah, like I guess 10 and a half. Coming up, it was
Wow.
August of 2015 when I left.
Oh, I was at that last
Um,
show at the Village
yeah,
Idiot.
at the Village Idiot. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, we had a really great day that day. That was fun. I still have the pictures of that particular day.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're going to dig a little bit into a lot of different topics, but personally, I knew it was time to move on for a while, and that was something that I was looking forward to doing. I never really talked outwardly about what I was going to do, which was move to Nashville to pursue songwriting and to get into the music business and world. Because how do you tell somebody that you want to do that when you've never talked about it before at all? Music has always been a big part of my life, and I just never really discussed it or did anything with it. And I finally got to the point in life where I'm like, I got to do something about this. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing. The first, half of those 10 and a half years where I like to compare them to maybe going back to school or going to college, where there's a whole other 4 year education. And I just kind of kept my head down and met
Hmm.
as many people as I could. And obviously being able to work in the position that I did in radio for as long as I did, I had a little bit of an advantage because I knew a few people because I had been in a professional media environment. That helped out for sure. Getting to know people like our friend Patrick Davis, and being able to understand the world a little bit more than somebody that's just coming in completely cold and might be uh, you know, privy to some of the pitfalls of what might happen for somebody moving to Nashville. So,
Wasn't
beyond that,
entire it wasn't entirely amateur hour then, is what you're saying.
no, and trust me, I had plenty of amateur moves that still happen, but yeah, I was much more fortunate and probably kept a little bit more to myself through those first 4 to 5 years simply because of that. Where you don't want to put out too much, talk too much about what you got going on unless you're absolutely sure and ready that this is going to be the thing. And fortunately, right now I'm in a place that I can do that, where I've been recording music and putting songs out probably at least every 6 weeks since September, and going to continue to do that. So I'm excited to be in that space where I can write songs for other people, if it's open and possible to do that. I've got enough friends and colleagues in the business now that want to sit down and write and potentially use what we do and as part of their projects. But I'm also in a place that I can do my own thing and put it out there. And who knows, maybe one day, be fortunate enough for somebody to like something that I write and put it out themselves. And that's kind of the name of the game. Just write a good song. Whatever you feel like a good song is, that's authentic, and be yourself and put it out there and see what's happening. But that's pretty much what I've been doing. The last 10 years is just kind of keeping my head down. Going against the grain and against the wind as much as I possibly can in this business, and trying to celebrate the wins when I can and not get too down on the losses when it happens. And yeah, I wouldn't really have it any other way. It's been a blast, man. To be honest with you, it's been a lot of fun, and a lot of other doors have opened for me in the last decade or so. And yeah, it's a change. And the thing I like the most about it is that everything was amicable. It's not like I got fired from 107.5 or Cumulus Media. I chose to leave on my own. Still have a great relationship with everybody that was involved then, and folks that have moved on even to other places, might be working for other stations. So I can still kind of have my cake and eat it too. I can
Mm.
go back on the air with Jay Phillips and still have a great time
And speaking
yucking
of
it up
which,
with
thank
him.
God he is back on the air now after
Yeah, yeah, no,
a tremendous
absolutely.
battle that he just won against cancer.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely, and so proud and happy for him and his family and everything that they've already gone through. They went through one
yeah.
incredibly tough battle with his wife, 18 years ago, and to be on the other side of it for him, I know was incredibly scary. But he's back at it. He's healthy, and looking forward to being able to see him again and give him a big hug.
Hmm. Yeah, you and me both. You and I are both big Norm Macdonald fans, so I guess it's safe to say that the Phillips family are 2-0 and they have no draws with cancer right now. So that's definitely good. Um,
Yep, yep, yep. For those that don't know, Norm Macdonald's got a great line, and to paraphrase, that basically you don't lose your battle to cancer, you draw, because the cancer dies with you, right? So yeah, you strangle that bastard to death with you as well. So
Oh Lord.
yeah.
One other title I forgot to mention, I guess you're too modest to mention it as well. Um, I'm speaking right now live with Sister Hazel's opening act. So,
Ah,
uh,
yeah, yeah, man. That's been another blessing for me. Is in the summer of 2019, I got approached by a friend of mine here in Nashville that I'd worked with during the first month or so that I moved to town, and um, got to work with Sister Hazel, and still do. Not got to, but started in July of 2019 with them, and I've toured the country, been around the world. Not around the world, but we've been to Mexico and Canada. We've toured North America and the islands together. But yeah, man, they've been great, and they've been such fantastic supporters of me. And I think it says everything about them that they met a guy like me that they didn't know, um, didn't immediately hand the keys to the car over, but after a while, they and just being out on the road and hanging and becoming friends, they realized what my passions were and what my ambition was, and
yeah.
they've given me an opportunity. So yeah, I mean, I've opened for them a handful of times, from Ice House Amphitheater and there in Lexington, South Carolina, to a fantastic venue up here in Nashville called Third and Lindsley. So those of you that are really savvy music fans and have traveled to Nashville, you'll know the importance of a place like Third and Lindsley. And then they had me open for them and play multiple sets on their Cornerstone event this year. Getting to be on the bill with bands like Need to Breathe and Switchfoot and Will Hogue and a handful of other incredible artists, Stephen Kellogg, that I'm just really, really big fans of what they do. It's kind of proof that you don't have to be a mega star to be successful in this business and carve out your own niche. And I have a lot of credit to give to Sister Hazel for opening a lot more doors than I thought would be open for somebody like me, and to let a crew guy go from the shadows and the wings of doing guitar teching or drum teching or whatever the job entailed that day, to actually being front and center for them. So yeah, I got a lot of love for those guys. And quick addendum: part of what made my joining the band, and this is very relevant to this show and conversation, is they all went to high school with G.A. Mangus, former Gamecock quarterback coach and
No
and
kidding.
offensive coordinator at times, and also they went to school with Will Muschamp's older brother, and they loved telling the story while Muschamp was still there, at least in the last little bit that I got to experience him coaching South Carolina. While I got to know them, he was known as Little Will, because he would always come and hang around with his older brother and the
Yeah.
guys and Sister Hazel. So their connections to the South Carolina football program have run pretty deep, and it's kind of a weird thing to think about, a hated division rival all those years, and the fact that so much of their history is tied to University of Florida.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah. Anyway, it's kind of a fun connection there.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of trivia answers right there, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Um, real quick before we get started on the topic of Carolina football, give us an update on Nashville Knights. Has the schedule been set yet for this summer?
Yeah, we're close. We're close. I've got the names. I've got the dates. A few of them are on hold, but some of them are confirmed. I just can't announce them just yet.
I
I
gotcha.
will say for those of you that do know and are aware of the series, I've been doing it now for 5 years, going into year six at Steel Hands Brewing there in Columbia, and bringing my friends down that some are up and coming, some are established, writers and artists that have had a lot going for them. But this year will actually be less shows. So we're only going to do 6 over the course of the summer between June and August. But yeah, be sure to pay attention. Follow along with me. Follow along with Steel Hands. We'll have some stuff coming out in the coming week or so. Once I can finally get some ink dried on some contracts, then I can actually say it. But that's one thing I learned very early in this business is don't ever say that anything's going to happen until the ink is dry on a contract,
Well,
because people can pull out. Then I'm just not going to say anything just yet.
I gotcha. Well, whenever the ink does dry, for all of our listeners out there, if you're in the Columbia area this summer, get out the Steel Hands on those Friday nights because they are worth the time. A lot of fun, good food, good drinks. Uh, just a great way to get out and kill a couple of hours on a Friday night in the summertime.
Yeah,
But
man,
anyway,
and it's been excited to see you come out there, man. And I've always appreciated the support and just
absolutely.
trying to let some of the folks from back home. I've had a goal and a dream of in some ways building a little bit of a pipeline between Nashville and Columbia, and just making it easier. I was somebody that again appreciated music, played music, never talked about it, didn't have the confidence to go out and play the way that I do now. And so I'm just hopeful that for anybody that's trying to do this or wants to do this that lives in the area, I wish that something like this were coming through. I wish that I knew somebody at the time that was bringing award-winning songwriters to town that I might have a chance to meet,
Yeah,
and learn a little bit more about the business, and hopefully in my own way find a way to grow. So that's another big part of what Nashville Nights is
yeah.
just bringing these established folks down that might be able to give a kind ear and some advice to the next generation that want to do this.
That's awesome, my friend. Well, anyway, let's get up and running here on the topic at hand. And we've been wanting to do this now for a few weeks. And like I said, the topic tonight is not one that I've been looking forward to at all, but we knew it was coming at some point, especially after it had been announced maybe about 2 months prior that he had entered hospice. And then last month, we got the news that former head coach of the Gamecocks, Lou Holtz, had passed away. Um, I just don't know how much you can really say. I don't think you can overstate how much of an impact he really had at Carolina. Um, and so, Michael, I guess we need to start at the beginning, which is the close of the 1998 season. Um, where in life were you at that time, if I may start with?
I was in high school, preparing to go to college. And again, here's the music and sports thing kind of coming to a head. At this point in life, I chose sports. I was actually taking guitar lessons in Greenville, South Carolina, where I largely grew up. I was born in Irmo, and from age 7 until 17, turning 18, going to South Carolina. I grew up in Greenville / Powdersville
Mhm.
area. So I took guitar lessons from a fantastic guitar teacher, and he's sadly since passed. But his name was Charlie Wood, right there in downtown Greenville, and Steve Watson. So if anybody's listening to this that happens to know, Watson Wood music in Greenville, South Carolina, I took guitar lessons there. And Charlie, again, he was a fantastic teacher. I was the stubborn student that did not want to learn theory. I didn't want to learn how to read stuff. He actually said to me, and this is something that haunts me to this day, but I'm getting better about, hey, you made your decision. Life is what it is. You're where you're supposed to be. But he wanted to
Kind
write
of
me a
like becoming a
recommend.
Gamecock fan.
Yeah, pretty much. But he wanted to write me a recommendation to go to Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
and learn and to get better at what I was doing. It was a lot of jazz guitar and teaching and he was trying his best, but again I was just a stubborn dumb kid, and
Yeah.
I wanted to go to college and get drunk and watch my favorite college football team for free because I was going to be a student at South Carolina, and
So
that's all I cared about. Damn it! So
you didn't want to be a woke bear or be part of the Calgorithm.
no, this is in Boston.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, be in
My
Boston.
mistake.
The
My mistake.
Berkeley. Yeah, Berkeley School of Music. Yeah,
Mm.
Berkeley School of Music, which has tons of great alums. I've laughed at the fact that John Mayer was there for like half a semester, probably right around that time frame. I wouldn't have met him, but it's always kind of been fun to me to think about, like, man, a
Your paths
sliding
could have
doors
crossed.
moment, like maybe very, 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 very briefly. But he was already well on his way to doing what he was doing, winning
Right.
the shootout over in Atlanta, and over at Eddie's Attic, and of course he is where he is now. But yeah, so at that point in life, I was playing guitar, but knew I was ready to go to college, and I actually told a lot of my friends, I'm going to go to South Carolina. I'm going to write for the student newspaper, and I'm going to interview Lou Holtz because that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And sure as hell, that's what I ended up doing. Now that wasn't again without its pitfalls, but
Well,
I did it. And if there's anything that anybody can surmise from our conversation to this point, or when it's all over, when I say I'm going to do something, I go and do it.
yeah.
So
Oh, I
that was
know.
one of that was the beginning of really that time for me. Is I'm going to go to college. I'm
Yeah.
going to write for the paper. I'm going to cover my favorite football team, and I'm going to interview a legendary coach. And I got
So,
to do that.
so before we get to Lou being at South Carolina, let's talk right there
Hmm.
at the end of 98. Obviously, Brad Scott, that era ended 1-10 in year five. There's no way, and for whatever reason, Brad thought that he should have gotten another year. There's no way you can give somebody after their fifth year going 1-10 another year. You can't do that in any era. Um, but okay, so Brad gets fired. I guess it would have been the day or the day after, or very soon after the season finale, after the team leaves
It
Memorial
was
Stadium for the last
it
time in
was
'98.
it was really, honestly, John, I think it was less about the 1-10 for Brad Scott, and it was more about the Heinz ketchup commercials.
You may
Goes
need
great
to.
on goes great on Tigers too.
Oh Lord.
That's a deep cut. That's a
Yeah,
deep cut. That's a
that might be even too
Gamecock,
deep for
like that's a
me.
yeah, that's an insane Gamecock fan reference to make. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's about how deep in the rabbit hole I've been.
Well, anyway,
Yeah,
Brad ends up getting fired. He gets shown the
right,
door. Um, so obviously this is 1998. So this is well before, the social media hot boards. This is long before Twitter. This is before
right.
Facebook, MySpace, whatever you may have. So you had talk radio, you had the newspapers, of course. So obviously, I don't remember who the hot names were at that time, if there were any. But I guess kind of first of all, kind of the state of the fans after '98. I'm sure because stop me if I'm wrong. Would it be wrong to say that at that point, even South Carolina had still not recovered from the death of Joe Morrison?
Honestly, John, I don't know that they have now. I mean, because it's still talked about. Like
Hmm.
I
Oh
and I
yeah,
and I think a big part of that, and I don't want to get too far off topic here, but um, I just think that there's been so little consistent success with the program that it makes you go back. It
yeah.
makes you think about the what ifs and what could have beens, and that's obviously still a big part of it. Now, those that were more aware and older, at the time, that can remember exactly what that was about. I mean, I was just a kid.
Hmm.
I remember, my parents coming into my room at 11 o'clock, on a particular night where the local news had mentioned Joe Morrison's death, and just the shock that had happened. But
Yeah,
I was, 7, 8 years old, when that happened, and it didn't quite hit me as
yeah.
much. But I, recognized in my family, that it was something big had just happened. But yeah, I don't know that that a certain generation of the fan base, or really the health of the program overall, has ever fully recovered from
Hmm.
what those 80s years were from the mid to late 80s, because
Yeah.
you got the 84 year and the game that
87.
everybody still talks about. You've got the best, team to be, under 500 according to Beano Cook, in 86. You've got a great year in 87. And you've got the steroid scandal, and you've got things that you got a Sports Illustrated cover and a steroid scandal, and you've got two of your star players at the time, a Todd Ellis and Sterling Sharp, who don't necessarily see eye to eye after the fact, and there's just a lot of weird things that happened in the program at that time that ultimately led them into the SEC, which is kind of what we're going to talk about, because at this particular point, they're closing in on 9 to 10 years in the league, and not really having a lot to cheer about. So
Yeah.
I think that was really the important part of getting somebody like Lou Holtz to come in and elevate the name and status of the program.
At what point did Lou's name start to come into the picture that he was a serious player at South Carolina?
Uh, I remember hearing a lot of the rumblings about it, and it was pretty quick, because he was a studio analyst on CBS,
Hmm.
and there's always the rumors that go around. We clearly didn't have the connectivity that we have now.
Didn't
Obviously, there
have
was
Gamecock
yeah,
Central or the
you didn't
Big
have.
Spur.
Well, you had Gamecock Central. It was alive then, but it was not as big or as well known
Right.
outside of the niche fan base. I do want to give a little bit of credit to Brian Shoemaker and what he's been able to build with Gamecock Central. They're 30. God, they're what, 31 years old now,
Something like
which
that. And
is which is wild.
you look at what Chris and Wes have done since then. They've
Yeah,
taken it to a whole new stratosphere. But
yeah,
okay,
absolutely. But yeah,
so
you just
it
you
was
didn't quite
pretty.
have the ability to go and check, and the rumor mill wasn't as prevalent as it is these days, where you can get bogged down in a lot of untruths.
It was still dial-up
But it
internet at the time, so
but
you couldn't really get much refreshing going
yeah,
on at that time.
but when it started to happen, like, it was the kind of thing where there was a little bit more to it than just a rumor. Like, you kind of felt something was there. And man, I'll never forget the day that it might have been the Army Navy game, that they were hosting. It might have been one of those last games of a regular season. I can't quite remember which game it was,
Mm.
but I will tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that when Lou Holtz pulled up that Gamecock coffee mug on CBS national television, and just the validation that you felt, and you could just tell across. I knew how I felt, and I knew that, for every Gamecock fan, that was such a immense moment of pride to know, my God, there is a Hall of Fame legendary coach with our logo that's going to coach our team. Damn it, this is awesome. We're never losing again.
Okay, so
But
well, hold on, we'll get there. But
yeah,
so that
yeah.
kind of leads me to my next question is, so I'm guessing, the day after the season finale in '98, I'm sure it's probably doom and gloom. We're we're just never going to have anything and it's going to be terrible forever. But then when Lou is announced, is it, oh my God, we've just turned the corner. We are now a serious SEC contender and we are going to just roll over everybody? Or was it just kind of they could hire anybody? It's still South Carolina. What was the general sense at that time?
Are you talking about general sense, or are you talking about Gamecock sense?
Gamecock sense.
Oh, well, you're a Gamecock fan, right?
Of course. Of
I'm
course.
okay. Well, I think you answered your own question with the first part of that,
Yeah.
man. The excitement was through the roof. You could not convince too many Gamecock fans that they weren't on their way to the moon at
Yeah.
that point. You're in the SEC. You've had
Mm.
nearly a decade at that point in it. You just hired a legendary coach. Yeah, it's tough with Florida and Tennessee, where they are, and Alabama always going to be Alabama, at
Right.
least until they weren't for about 7 years. But it was an exciting time. It was an incredibly exciting time to be a Gamecock fan, because at least for the first time in my life, it wasn't just about the stories. It wasn't just about what had happened. It was about what could happen.
Right.
And that's I think that's what really got the juices flowing for a lot of people.
Oh, I'll bet. I mean, and I was only in third grade at the time. I was 9. But all of a sudden, I hear people start talking about this guy, Lou Holtz. And just all of a sudden, just the energy went in a complete 180. People were talking about Carolina football, and it wasn't the jokes, it wasn't the acronyms or whatever you may have, the lame cocks, shame cocks, that kind of thing. It
Mm.
was, hey, this is going to get exciting, this is going to get good. And so early on, so I guess it's still, a spring game going into the summer. The excitement couldn't have been any higher then. And then um, the season kicks off, and we won't go into every game, for beta, detailed wise, but um, everyone still talks about the opening night where it was just playing in a
Monsoon against NC
monsoon.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but um,
You know what's funny, John, is I actually had not thought about that game, and I was like, hold on, and you said into the opening game, and then it all, pun intended, I guess, came flooding back to me. That like, oh God, that opening night, yeah, with Boo Williams.
mhm.
Oh man, what was the final of that game? 10-7,
I
something
think it was
crazy
10 to
like that.
nothing.
10-0. Okay, like there was
Yes.
no points on the board. All right, well that was should have been a harbinger of things to come. Big old zeros.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I remember the excitement around that night. I mean, in leading up to it, the excitement of getting a guy like Ryan Brewer, who
Yep.
I'm proud to call
Uh, Michael, I
a
think you may have
player, and
frozen it.
had no idea how life is going to go. That you end up becoming friends, and between him and Andrew Pinnick, just the excitement was through the roof that they had
Well,
gotten quality guys like that. So
so you mentioned some of those guys. There one guy though, I think that really was um, maybe the steal, even though he was from South Carolina, he was the steal, the coup, whatever you want to call it. The one guy that I think people look back on or need to look back on still, even though it didn't end well for him, the one guy that I think really made that group eventually go was Derek Watson.
yeah, of course. How could I forget Squeaky? So I went to the rival high school.
Hmm.
I went to Wren High School when I growing up in the upstate, and he was at the rival high school. And um, if you'll provide me one Uncle Rico moment, I was playing a hybrid linebacker safety on the opposite side of the field, and I did catch him one time. I caught him just inside the 5 yard line. He took a pitch and went, and he was gone.
Yeah,
But that particular moment, that's the one thing, that's the only thing that I can hang my hat on, is I did catch him,
you
just
got him out
at
of
the very
bounds.
end. I got the angle and got him out of bounds. I saved a
Okay.
touchdown for at least one play.
Oh Lord.
But yeah, man, that was huge. I mean, all of that was huge. Like all of those guys, Watson, Brewer, Pinnick, the the at the time the holy trinity of Gamecock running backs, and just how big of a deal it was for them to commit and come to South Carolina. It was immense,
Yeah.
absolutely immense. But you're right. Like we all know the story and how it all went, for Watson.
Well, we'll get there,
But
but
yeah.
so back to 99. Obviously NC State loss. But then you get more out of conference. I think Marshall was on the schedule at that point too. And that ended up being a loss. At what point, Michael, did you start to just say, uh-oh, this is not going to be as good as we thought it was?
Um, it might have been after that Marshall game, and that was not even really a knock to Marshall, because at the time they weren't a bad program. Like,
Right.
they had some things going for them. Um, so that maybe was an
Was
unfair
was Byron
criticism.
Leftwich on that team?
I believe he was. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have my special super memory machine in front of me right now. Maybe you can look that up and check that out. But I believe so. I believe
Yeah.
so. It was
Randy Moss had
it,
obviously been in the NFL, I think that was his second year in the NFL.
right, right.
So thank
And when
God.
did when was Pennington? Chad Pennington.
Ooh, that may have been who it was.
That I think that might have been it. Leftwich might have been a little bit later.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I'm looking Leftwich up right now. Let's see. Nope. Leftwich was there. He was a freshman in 98.
Okay, okay. So it was Pennington, and then and Leftwich was the heir.
Right. Um, well, anyway, okay. So, and then,
Yeah,
um, later on in the season, you're still just hoping to find a win somewhere. We almost get it, I believe, against Vandy. Um, and I got to be honest with you, I was not a Carolina fan when I was in the fourth grade in 1999.
okay.
Um,
Who were you
uh,
pulling for?
I didn't really like football at that point. That night
Okay.
I do remember one thing. Um, when we played Vandy, I wasn't watching the game. I wasn't listening to it because that was game one of the World Series that year. Um, and yeah, that didn't go so well either. We don't talk about that.
Yeah,
But
I
no,
understand.
I do remember. I think Carolina lost on a really weird score that night. I think it was like 11-10, and
Yeah, yeah,
missed
it was something like that. Yep.
a chance to win the game in the closing seconds, and just missed a field goal wide right, I think. And I think was it
I'm
was
not
it
gonna
Kim?
lie, John. I've largely tried to block out specific moments
Well, hold
of
on. No, this is
all of
great
those
because
games.
well, this one. I think this is the infamous post-game speech that Lou gave after the game that uh, Kimry loves to tell when Lou came into the locker room after the game and I think said, "Brad Scott should have got the trophy for being able to win one game with you losers," something like that. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
sounds about right. Good
yeah,
job.
but so 99 ends obviously infamously 0-11, and it's a 21 game losing streak.
I sat in the
Uh,
upper deck of Death Valley with my dad, thinking, surely they can beat a two-win Clemson team on
that
the
might have been the
road.
year before.
In '98, no,
98.
'98, yeah,
99 was in Columbia.
Well, I'm thinking of the 90. Yeah, the '98 year was the year before. That was
Yeah.
where I sat up there. But they actually, if memory serves, even as bad as they were in '99, they had a pretty good chance to win that game too.
The funny thing is, and this is the weird thing, I I was just looking at just some old games because that's what I do when I'm bored and I'm on my lunch break and I go and pull up old YouTube Carolina games and just wanting to kind of get a feel of everything. So I pull up a game and they show a stat from 99. Carolina's defense was actually ranked 20th in the country that year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, John Abraham
Yeah.
anchoring that defensive line. I mean, that's in South Carolina football in a nutshell. Is this good enough to attract quality star talent, but never enough of it, and then they can't get all three phases of the game to ever be good at the same time in the same year.
Mhm.
They might have a great defense like this run, where top 20 in the country, but your offense is putrid and you're playing 11 quarterbacks that year because of all kinds of reasons, valid and not valid. So,
Well, I mean, shoot,
yeah,
if I remember correctly, our buddy Langston Moore took a couple of snaps on offensive line that year.
yeah, yeah. They were just trying to find
Yeah.
anything that works, and obviously nothing did.
So 99 closes 0-11, 21 game losing streak. Obviously, a year earlier, the excitement was through the roof for Lou coming. After that season finale that year, did was it a lot of, you know what, Lou Holtz is still here. This is just a mulligan. We're going to get it turned around, or was it maybe the game's passed the old man by?
No, I mean always the optimists are Gamecock fans, right? So I think there was a large uh, section that's like, you know what, that is Brad Scott's fault. Maybe to your point, um, that Lou said to the guys after losing to Vanderbilt. Maybe he should have won an award to get, but I think a lot more people seeing how he was able to recruit. I think the fact that he got Watson, he got Brewer, he got Pennick, just to name a few. I mean, those were the
Mhm.
big ones. That he could do that. They're like, all right, he needs more time. Get his guys in. Let's see what he can do. And obviously, we're going to get into it, but
Yeah.
at the time, the biggest turnaround in college football history.
And I think what really was the catalyst of that, if I've done a little research on this, but basically what I found out is after the 99 season, the offensive staff, and credit Lou for this because he's always been a guy that's been looked at as old school, stuck in his ways, stubborn, whatever you may have. He sent the entire offensive staff, I don't know where, but he sent them to a coaching clinic and they learned the spread offense. And then, you know, they finally are able to get something clicking. And again, I wasn't going to the games at this point. I was intrigued and interested, but I wasn't going to the games. But when you go to the spread offense, especially in that era, it changes things. And so I guess in a way, because of where they were in time at that point, it was safe to say that they looked into the future all the
A little
way,
bit. Yeah,
all the
a little
way
bit.
to the year 2000 for all of you Conan fans out there.
Right. The year 2000.
Uh,
Um,
but but yeah, going
well,
into that New Mexico State game, if you remember, and you would have been a sophomore at that time.
yes, yes. After unmercilessly being mocked by all of my friends, my first year in college, I'm like, why did I come to school for this? I could
So
have gone to Penn State, and they were winning. They were like competing for the BCS. Like I could have
right,
gone there. Yeah,
right.
yeah. I heard that plenty of times.
So going into 2000, going into that game, I guess if you can remember anything about going into that game, was it this is our year? This is definitely it. We're going to finally break this thing. We're going to win and we're going to just roll over everybody, or was
I,
it?
I I don't know that it was about rolling over everybody, but certainly, I mean, when you play a team like New Mexico State, regardless of what the previous record is, it's a new year, and you're
Yeah.
playing a team that's not in the SEC. So of
Are they
course,
in the
everybody
are they in the
everybody thought
SWAC?
they were going to win. I'm not, man. I can't keep up with expansion and wherever teams have moved.
Yeah.
Man, I'm still not over the fact that Maryland is in the Big Ten.
Or
Like to
Nebraska.
me, yeah, but the Maryland one messes with me the most because I watched a lot of ACC basketball
Hmm.
over the years, and those Gary Williams basketball teams going toe to toe with North Carolina and Duke and Wake and Virginia. It is mind-numbingly weird for me to look at Maryland in anything now and be like, oh, they're playing in the Big Ten. I still can't get over that. So yeah, the all the moving around over the last 15, 20 years is
Yeah.
and especially the most recent years, I can't keep up with who's who. I mean, we've got Southern Cal and UCLA in the Big Ten now,
Oh,
and
I
that's a
just looked it
conference
up.
game.
They
Weird.
were in they were in the Big West Conference at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Along with Utah State, Boise State, Idaho, New Mexico State, Arkansas State, and North Texas were part of this conference.
They had
So
no idea how good they were all about to have it, did they?
yeah.
Yeah, every one of those programs has all gone on to do. Most of those programs have all gone on to do really, really, really good things.
Hmm. Yeah, no question about that. Well, anyway, the most memorable thing about that game, 31 to nothing, Carolina wins, ends the winless streak. The most memorable
Storm,
thing, the
storm the
storming of the
field.
field and the
Yep,
goalpost came down.
yep. I was there. That was the thing. That was the catharsis.
Did you get a piece of the goalpost?
I did not get a piece of the goalpost. Once it was taken out of the stadium, I left. I was done.
Yeah.
I do remember that night. And look, again, my college friends that I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, they knew how much it meant to me. Like I
Hmm.
was the only like big time Gamecock fan. They were out of staters that were still trying to learn and understand. They just wanted to get, see their football team do good. So they weren't quite as passionate yet. They all are now. Like we're still on group chats on game days, just bitching and
Hmm.
complaining about everything, just like any Gamecock fan is, these days. But they were still trying to figure it out. And I remember getting interviewed by Watch Fox on the field after the game to discuss the win. and I remember watching. We all got back to our dorm rooms and watched the interview, and I got made fun of so much because they're like, "You're talking like a player. Like you didn't do shit. You weren't on the field. Why are you acting like you did something?" And that was a really, really that was some fun night. But I was, man, I just
That
I wore it on my sleeve, man.
that
My
though
heart on my sleeve with the Gamecocks. And
well,
that night to have a camera in front of me on the football field as a college sophomore and a team breaking a 21 game losing streak, you're damn right I acted like I had done
well,
something for it.
that again, I think right there is a little bit of what it is to be a Gamecock fan because this is not a, there is no such thing as a bandwagon Gamecock fan. You are ride until you die. No ride or die. It is ride until you die.
Hmm.
And you don't, switch around here because, we don't have the greatest football history ever. I'll freely admit that. I mean, obviously, let me ask you this. We just came off of a 4-8 year in 2025.
After being
2020
ranked
was
in the
not
top
too long.
15,
Was that?
so after being ranked in the top 15, there have
Yeah,
not
in
been
the top
many.
10.
Yeah, that too.
No, but then 2020 was 5 years prior to that, 2-8 in the COVID shortened year,
Yeah.
and the year before that was 2019, and another 4-8 year, including a loss to Appalachian State, 2015, 3-9, including a loss to the Citadel. Let me ask you this: were any of those years comparable in terms of how low it got with 1998 and 1999?
I just, speaking right off the cuff, I mean, my first instinct to say is that those are probably worse because we got to see what it could be like when you could win, like what
Mhm.
this program could do. I think those years are more damning to me because the potential had already been shown.
Right.
It was no more why not us. It was you finished fourth in the country less than a decade ago. What the hell are you doing now?
Yeah.
I think
Or
that's why for me, I look at those moments is probably more damning than an 0 and 11 because
right.
at least in you just didn't have the expectation. I mean, fans are
Right.
always going to be excited. Gamecock fans are always going to believe in their team. They're always going to be excited about every season that starts, regardless of whether the writing's on the wall that they may not be that good in a particular year. And
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's what you need to have a fan base that's going to always have your back no matter what. Um, but there was not the expectation in the late 90s that there was 20 years later. I
Yeah.
mean, you have 3 consecutive years of 11 wins and you have generational talent coming through the program. So to not be able to build on that and at least find
And
some
then,
level of
yeah.
consistency is more damning to me than 1 and 10 and what that turned into 0 and 11.
Part of that, I think, may be the athletic director, but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so getting back to 2000, obviously, then after New Mexico State, well, then SEC play starts right up, and I'm sure the feeling was, well, we just got to win, and
Yeah.
at least we don't have that to deal with anymore.
Right.
But here comes Georgia and Quincy Carter, who is, touted as the Heisman favorite. And again, to show you how good Carolina's defense was, this is the Heisman frontrunner. 5 interceptions and a 21-10 win. And again, the goalposts come down. Did
I
that game come out of left field, or did people think we could actually go into that game and win?
People believed that they could, I don't know that you had a majority that believed they could win. I
Mhm.
do know that there were a majority that felt like they could be in the game and that they
Yeah,
could compete. And if it got to the fourth quarter, then who knows? But it was it was such an ass kicking from the kickoff. I mean, that
yeah.
was what was great about that game. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it did kind of come out of nowhere. Top 10 Georgia team, Heisman candidate. a guy that would go on and be, a fixture for the Cowboys
Yep.
for a little while.
He had a good
Um,
season in 2003. I'll give him that.
yeah, I mean, I remember being a student. I said some incredibly awful things about Quincy Carter, and
You know what?
at
We've
that
all said
particular
something
game.
bad about a quarterback or his mother that we
Yeah,
don't need to
yeah.
repeat that here.
But I still joke about this just to go back to being on the field after the New Mexico State game and
Mm.
being caught by the local television cameras to do an interview. Um, I got back on the field after the Georgia win and helped tear the goalpost down and march it around the stadium.
That one you
And
did get a
we
piece of.
yeah, well, I didn't necessarily get to keep a piece of that one, but there is a piece of that day that still lives on me because when you are carrying a goalpost around with hundreds of other people and you are just sort of flowing in an emotion that you can't, like, you're just there,
Yeah.
like you're just going, you have to keep moving or you're going to get crushed.
Oh, yeah.
We moved it around to the visitors sideline at Williams-Brice Stadium where the metal bleachers, or not bleachers, where the benches were,
Right.
and I didn't realize where we were, and I remember turning and starting to move, and I just felt like this incredibly sharp pain in my right shin, and I had hit the metal bleacher,
Oh my gosh.
like, or bench where where the guys sit, and
Right.
I'm walking with my left leg fully extended and my right leg now gushing blood,
Oh.
bent up on that bench, trying to hobble along across the visitor benches to get through. But I still have a scar on my right shin from carrying the goalpost around that day and hitting
Wow.
hitting that bench. So yeah, if anybody ever questions my Gamecock fandom, that's the one thing that I can say that I've got.
Scars don't
I
lie.
actually did bleed on that field for just a little bit. I just didn't.
And
I
it was
just
hot
didn't
that day, so
play.
you sweated too. Blood, sweat.
I was blood, sweat, and some happy tears.
Yeah, I meant to ask after the New Mexico State game, were there any tears shed after getting that first win?
Of course, man. I mean,
Yeah.
again, the level of catharsis. Gamecock fans wear it pretty heavy, and
Hmm.
when you haven't won in almost 2 years, yeah, of course. And it seems silly to feel like you're overreacting to beating a team like New Mexico State at
Yeah.
the time, but my God, that might as well have been winning a national championship at the time, just
Hmm.
because. Yeah, I'm 1 in 2 years, man. That
21,
the
21
weight.
games straight.
Yeah,
Probably
not many.
hasn't happened before, probably won't happen again. Hope not,
Uh,
especially not here.
yeah. For a team of that caliber, like even being historically below average, like a team like South Carolina should never ever 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 lose 21 games in a
Yeah.
row. And they did. So we lived through it somehow, some way.
And we got back to it. So
Yep.
2000, there were a couple of games that season that could define the year 2000 for Gamecock football. We talked about New Mexico State and Georgia, of course, but I think the one game that lives in Gamecock, the annals of Gamecock lore forever, a game just simply known as the Fade. So it's a it's the fourth week of the year, and we'll just fast forward through it. It's been kind of a back and forth affair. Mississippi State has a lead late. It was 19-13 late, and it's third down. And quarterback Phil Petty, who I think is one of the three best quarterbacks in Carolina history, goes down with an injury. And this walk on that we've touched on a little bit, Eric Kimry has to come off the bench on fourth down and 10. And Lou says to him, "What can you throw?" And Kimry says, "I can throw the fade, coach." Holtz, without hesitation, says, "Throw the fade." And the rest, as they say, is history.
The
Jermail,
rest is
he hits
history.
Jermail Kelly perfectly, and
Over Fred
pandemonium.
Smoot.
What's that?
Remember Fred Smoot?
The
Fred
name
Smoot,
sounds
man,
familiar.
he was the big time defensive back. He was an all conference defensive back. Had a pretty solid NFL career.
Mm.
He was the guy at that time. He was a very intimidating defensive back, and that was a really really tough game. But I think what that game highlighted is that South Carolina, despite, all right, we got the win over New Mexico State, got the monkey off your back. Oh, now you can believe you go out there and absolutely manhandle a top 10 Georgia team with a Heisman level quarterback. Um, that Mississippi State game was the one where they showed that they really had the guts.
Yeah,
They could hang into a game
they could dig
against
deep.
a good Jackie Sherrill, those Mississippi State
Joe Lee Dunn,
teams.
by the way.
Yeah, Jolie Dunn. So that was the game that they needed to have,
Yeah,
because it's fine to go and beat a team that you're supposed to beat, New Mexico State. I'm not brushing off the Georgia one, but you got to have a game like that against what you could consider a peer, if you will,
yeah,
in the conference. And Mississippi State, while they were better than South Carolina as a program at that point, I still consider Mississippi State really more of a peer to South Carolina than,
yeah.
than most other programs in the leagues. A place that really wants to win, wants to do well. Um, South Carolina actually has more resources, but that's beside the point. But that was the kind of game that they had to go and win. And the fact that they had lost their starting quarterback for a play, and you have, I mean, a storybook moment. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm getting chills thinking about it. I remember exactly where I was in the student section. I remember exactly what happened when I saw that ball cradle into his arms and bounce around for a couple of milliseconds, and you're like, did he get it? And then you see all the arm, it's limbs. So I'm a
Yeah.
big soccer fan, right? Big soccer fan. And in Premier League, whenever a crazy moment like that happens and there's like a last second goal, they have a phrase, they say limbs, and it's about the arms and all the people going nuts and going crazy.
Yeah.
So when he corralled that ball and secured it, the limbs in the south end zone, like that's when I like, oh, he actually got it. Like he did it. It happened.
Yeah,
And I
that's one
remember
of my favorite
probably,
views, by the way, whenever a big play happens for Carolina, just seeing all the limbs
yeah,
go
the
up.
limbs, baby, the
Yeah.
limbs. Yeah, let's get that vernacular into American college football, because it's really cool. But I have a good friend of mine who is 6'7", and I remember holding onto his shoulders and probably propelling myself to about 10 feet in the air when that happened. So yeah, that was an awesome moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and just it just it it's magic almost when something like that happens. So then Carolina falls back to earth a little bit, stumbles against Alabama and Tuscaloosa, um, mostly because Phil couldn't go that week, I think. If Phil could
Yeah,
go, that was not a good Alabama team. But
no,
when you're,
as we found out the next year.
yeah, well, eh, that's another, we'll touch on that.
Yeah, I know.
Um, so Carolina has a pretty strong start. But then the month of November kind of bites Carolina. Losses to Tennessee. Even with that loss to Tennessee, Carolina goes. This is the first time ever Carolina has a chance to go into the swamp. Because remember, that was at a time when Carolina and Florida were always the last conference game for both teams. Florida has Florida State. We have our neighbors from the
Hmm.
upstate who we always face in the season finale. That was at the time back when divisions were still a thing, when Carolina and Florida always met for the season finale. And Carolina has a chance to do something that had never happened at that point. Carolina goes in with a chance to win the East. And early on, it damn near looks like Carolina's going to do it. Two block punts that were both
21
returned for
nothing.
touchdowns, 21 to nothing. But then there are three more quarters to go, and you're facing Steve Spurrier in the swamp. That's not exactly, no one's going to say you let him down by not securing that. But um, nevertheless, 0-11 the year before, 21 straight losses, as we've said. And Lou Holtz has this place on fire. This place is believing, and you have a legit chance to go to Atlanta. I don't think that there have been some turnarounds that have looked a little bit better. Auburn from 2012 to 2013, but no one in those turnarounds had ever gone 21 straight losses. That is a testament to itself and just how great of a coach Lou Holtz was to be able to take a team that did that to the brink of going to Atlanta. That's I don't know who else could have done that.
There's not many. There's not many. I mean, obviously, you don't want to say there was nobody else that could do it because we don't know. We don't know the answer to
Yeah.
that. Maybe there is a guy that might have been able to do it, but Lou Holtz was a special guy. I mean, this show
Hmm.
is about Lou Holtz and what he brought to South Carolina. Um, in the early phases of any time for Lou Holtz, he was a magician
Yeah.
in more ways than one. I know he had his newspaper trick, but
Yep.
it's
We'll get to that
he
too.
was yeah. I mean he was a guy that just kind of knew what to say, when to say it. Um, and obviously we'll dig a little bit deeper into it, but they could not have asked for a better motivator at the time for a program that was in sore need of just
Yeah.
anybody that believed in them, and they got
Yeah.
that in Lou Holtz.
Absolutely. And obviously that wasn't the end of the season. Obviously, Carolina had a break go against them the following week with the game that is universally known as the push-off. I mean, I only talk to Carolina fans about that. I don't know what those people call it, but we don't need to touch on that. We all know what happened.
Yeah,
Um, it's a screw job, but nevertheless, even then, three losses in a row, and you're still going to play for a New Year's Day bowl
yeah,
against one of the most elite programs in the history of college football. You're going against Ohio State on New Year's Day in Tampa. And oh, by the way, that star running back we talked about, Derek Watson, he gets suspended for violation of team conduct. And was the sense there of, at that point, was it, well, you know what, next man up, or was it, oh God, it's happening. This is what we've all dreaded could happen, and we're about to quote from Dodgeball, we're going to get our taints handed to us. Or what was the atmosphere like, you know, amongst Gamecock fans going into the Outback Bowl in 2000?
first bowl appearance since the CarQuest Bowl, so a lot of
Hmm.
folks were excited and ready to be down there as a New Year's Day bowl. I mean, that
Yeah.
didn't happen very often. I think the last New Year's Day bowl that South Carolina had played in was the Gator Bowl in '84.
Hmm.
So the history was on South Carolina's side in terms of fans being stoked and excited for again what the season had brought, the fact that they got the opportunity to go and play in a New Year's Day bowl game. It was great for them. And sure, when Watson gets suspended, there's going to be the reaction of, well, at least we got here,
Yeah.
kind of mentality.
And credit to Lou,
Fortunately,
but credit to Lou, by the way, for doing that to discipline obviously the star running back of that team, a thousand
well, I
yard
mean,
rusher.
yeah, but Watson was his project, man. I mean, that was the one that he wanted to get right. I mean, there's the famous or slash infamous quote that he told, "Hey, you'll either be filling up stadiums or you'll be sweeping them out."
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Watson didn't necessarily take all that to heart. He's come out in recent years. I think there was an article written a few years back, kind of catching up with him, and in his older days, he's obviously able to admit the opportunity that he lost
Yeah.
there in Columbia. So yeah, he had a chance to be something really special, and but honestly, we know what happened. So I'm glad that things worked out the way that they did
Yeah.
because somebody else got to write their own history and fantastic lore in the Gamecock football, and that was Ryan Brewer.
And again, Brewer would not have been a Gamecock had it not been for Lou Holtz. Lou, this guy is from, the town of Troy, Ohio. He was Mr. Football in the state of Ohio in 1998. And essentially, Carolina is the only place that really offers him a scholarship.
Mhm.
And Lou is certainly one of those guys that would say, your chance is coming. Be ready for it. And what do you know? Brewer got his chance and became, I'm not going to say he walks on water in Columbia, but he is never going to buy. I don't know if he's bought a drink since since that day in Columbia. So three
If he if
touchdowns
even if
and
he does, he's not paying full price.
exactly, exactly. So 2000 is, of course, remembered for that. But then Carolina follows it up in 2001 and starts out, I believe, 5-0. And again, we talk about games that kind of define the Holtz era. One game, and this is when I am going to games now. In 2001, I was 12 at the time.
Hmm.
The game to me early on that lived with me for a while um, was 2001 against Alabama. That was one of those games where it was just one of those. It was a comeback of the ages. It was a shootout, back and forth, bam, bam, bam. And if you weren't there, you can't really fully appreciate it. But there was so much going on that day. It's mighty Alabama. This is the first game at Williams-Brice after 9/11. Now, Carolina had already played the first college football game back uh,
In
in,
Starkville against
in
Mississippi
Starkville
State.
on
Yeah.
that Thursday night, but this is
Yep.
the first time being back in Columbia. So there's a lot of emotion there. It's a 12-point deficit late in the fourth quarter, and just somehow, some way, Carolina finds a way and comes back to win 37-36 with,
You want to know what my lasting image of that game is?
please
It's
tell,
Alabama. It's Alabama's quarterback.
Tyler
It was
Watts.
Tyler Watts at the time. Alabama wears those all white road unis, the crimson
Hmm.
helmet, all white. That kid played his ass off that
Yeah.
day. I mean, he probably had close to 300 all-purpose yards. I think he rushed for over 100 yards. But my
Mm.
lasting memory or image, not necessarily memory, but image of that game, and I remember kind of having a flashpoint moment where I looked at him walking off the field from the visitor's sideline again in the student section, which is in the corner behind the visitor's sideline. And I remember, obviously it was a huge deal that South Carolina had beaten Alabama. I mean, my
Yeah.
God,
First time ever in program history.
what, so beyond the euphoria of that, I just remember watching Tyler Watts walk off the field. He had like a student trainer or had, one of the team, uh, one of the team, health folks with him. And he was just walking off. He had his helmet in his left hand, and his all white uniform was almost all green
Yeah.
because he had carried the ball. He got beat up. Um, to your point, it was a shootout. I mean, it was a fantastic just game of football.
Yeah.
Period. If you were a neutral observer, it was an amazing game to watch, and even more amazing if you happen to be a fan of the team that ended up winning it. But I just remember that day for how sorry I kind of felt for Tyler Watts, because I'm like, man, that kid gave everything he could today,
Oh, yeah.
and South Carolina still found a way to win. And I think that's where it started to sink in for me. I'm like, they might be onto something. They might be a pretty special team this year.
Yeah. And, as that's one of those where I guess that team was the closest it would get with Lou.
Yeah.
It was a memorable season for sure. Again, you know, first time again beating Alabama. Later on in the season, it was the first time College Game Day ever came to South Carolina. That was huge. I mean, I
Hmm.
remember that. And I was just in the sixth grade at that time. And it was amazing to see ESPN's Game Day crew set up right there in the fairgrounds. Um, and just, again, playing in the last game of the season for the East. Carolina obviously it didn't go well that night,
No.
but another monkey that got off Carolina's back that year snapped a four-game losing streak to the upstate school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
that was one of
is
those.
that the one? Is that the Rex Grossman started at quarterback, and there was a blackout for
Yes.
South Carolina, and I
Yes.
remember Spurrier saying, "I'm glad they wore black because we
Yep.
could see the football easier."
You know, I don't mean to jump ahead.
uh,
I don't mean to
yeah,
change eras, but I think a lot of those quips he had are so much easier now to absorb after he became our coach.
right, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
back then
because
I
you
did
get
not
it.
appreciate. Yeah, back
Yeah,
then I didn't appreciate that.
No, but you're like, you son of a bitch. You're right, but
Yeah,
damn it,
yeah, yeah,
don't say it.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But, but nevertheless, I mean, none of that happens without Lou. None of it does. And
no.
just all of it was special. But unfortunately for Lou, one of the things that someone who comes out of retirement to coach, the one disadvantage they all have when you are north of the age of 55 or 60, one of your biggest opponents is the clock because every other coach in America will use that against you, and players that even play for you will use that against you because they know your time is ticking. And unfortunately, the first, as wonderful as the first half was, the back half was, it was a serious letdown because of one thing or another, whether it be the talent that was coming in, whether it be because of lightening up on discipline, whatever you may have, it just, I'm not going to say it fell off the rails because it wasn't like we went back to 0 and 11 every year again, but there were some disappointments after 2001.
Well, they got to 5-3 in consecutive years and then never won again
Yeah.
in
The month of
back-to-back
November,
years.
always a
Yeah, the
Carolina.
Orange Crush. I will never ever hear the phrase Orange Crush like a normal person.
You and
But
me
look,
both. I don't like that song because of that.
yeah, but I think for folks that have followed the program for a while, I mean, it's important to note, it was, excuse me, it wasn't something that was, reported at the time. Um, I guess for a variety of reasons, and the personal lives of those being involved was one that was very important. But Lou was pissed off at his son Skip,
Yeah.
and for doing things that he deemed incredibly inappropriate, and he demoted him without telling him. Skip finds out that he's been demoted from offensive coordinator from a reporter. He doesn't
Yeah.
find it out from his dad,
And this is going into
and
2004, mind you. This was the last year.
this was actually going into the 0203.
Oh,
Like
really?
yeah,
Okay. I
it
thought it
was
was later.
basically no, it was like the reason that the second half and the final years of Lou Holtz were not they were not able to build on them is because I mean Skip Holtz is a really good football coach. He's a great mind,
Yeah.
and he was doing a lot of those things at Connecticut in the spread that you mentioned earlier. He had built up Connecticut to be a pretty solid program, and decided that he wanted to coach with his dad. Like he could have continued growing Connecticut, into a much bigger program. But he wanted to coach with his dad, and unfortunately, things, they
Yeah.
had some things in their personal lives that went sideways, and that's, it's not for me to put, the all the dirty laundry out there for people, but they had a falling out, and that's essentially the beginning of the end of the Lou Holtz era as
Yeah.
South Carolina's football coach, because you sideline somebody that has a modern mind for the game. And Lou, as you astutely pointed, once you get beyond a certain age, your biggest opponent is the clock. And there were moments for Lou that he was calling. He took over play calling duties. Is anybody that may have followed along and really lived in this time and followed it game by game, day by day, week by week. Um, there were moments where you're like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah.
Like what is this? And
Yeah.
and after the fact, like getting a little bit more of oral history, from some of those former players that I've been fortunate to become friends with. There were moments where he was calling plays from the Notre Dame playbook for Tony Rice. You want to know why Dondrell Pinkins ran so many quarterback draws? It's because Lou was trying to recreate his national championship winning Notre Dame team 11, 12 years later in a game that didn't play that way anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest fall from grace for them to go from, to go 8-4, 9-3, to 5-6, 5-6, and 4-7, I believe is what how it wrapped up, or five
Five
and
and
six, five and
seven,
six,
five
five
and
and five and
seven,
seven,
and
5-7.
6-5. We're
six
the
and five.
final
Yeah,
three. Yeah.
yeah, we're the final three. So, and I don't want to jump ahead with it, but they finally got themselves to a point where they were going to go to the postseason again, and we know why it didn't
Yeah.
happen. But that was really the crux. Like you can talk about so many other factors with South Carolina under Lou Holtz. What really was the downfall was family personal
Hmm.
issues that led to him demoting his son, not telling him, and the internal pressures over that never got back on track. They just
Yeah.
didn't.
No, I mean it showed. It showed in on-field performance. However, I will say this, 2004, Carolina, as you pointed out, becomes postseason eligible again. Uh, I remember that day. And that
They beat
should have been
what
another
was
one of those
who was the quarterback for Arkansas?
Matt
That
Jones.
was Matt Jones. Yeah, that could
Yep.
that could run, man. That
Yeah.
guy had a stride, man.
But
But that was a tough game. That was the game that got them bowl eligible.
yep, and that again should have been another one of those, you know, era defining games. And unfortunately, it got overshadowed just a few weeks later, but we'll touch on that in a second. But that game and that season, if there was one bright spot in that season, it was a gray shirt safety who was a two-star coming out of high school who ends up leading the SEC in interceptions named Co Simpson. And just I don't recall. You and I both watched Clowney. You and I both watched Melvin Ingram. I still think you have to put in up there if you were to argue who had the most dominant season on defense individually by one player. Coach Simpson has got to be in that argument because of what he did as a freshman in the
Yeah.
SEC.
Yeah, no, he was great, man. And South Carolina has long, if their history may be mediocre, but one thing they can always hang their hat on is they've had really damn good defensive
Yeah,
backs like throughout their history. I'm not just talking about 90s into 2000s. So you can go back to
Brad Edwards.
a Brad Edwards or a Rick Sanford,
Hmm.
guys like that, just to go back to 40 something years ago, and guys that plied their trade in the NFL at a pretty high level. So South Carolina's always been able to find good defensive backs, and Cove was just another in a long line of them for sure.
Absolutely. And then, we mentioned kind of I guess the thing that kind of threw 2004 off of the rails was what Lou said to the team after that Arkansas win. He gathered him up and said, "Boys, I'm done after this season." And I kind of get what he might have been trying to do, galvanize him to, he's a Notre Dame guy. Well, let's win one for the Gipper. Maybe that's what he was trying to do. But looking back, that's one of the biggest mistakes he ever made because don't forget, Florida had just fired Ron Zook a few weeks earlier and allowed him to coach the rest of the way. That galvanized that Florida team, and they just beat the brakes off of Carolina in the swamp that night. And you watch that and you're like, hey, we're bowl eligible. We're going. This is awesome. We've got momentum. And then that happens, and you're kind of scratching your head like, what was that? And then you go to the season finale. I think rumors at that point were really starting to swirl, if I remember correctly. And you just had a bad feeling going into that game. And lo and behold, because don't forget, the night before was the infamous Malice in the Palace,
Yeah,
where the Pistons and the Pacers really took it to one another.
I think I don't know that I necessarily had a bad feeling about the game itself. It was a Carolina Clemson game,
Yeah,
and at that time I'd seen several of them, and you're always a little nervy going into that game,
sure.
regardless of how good your team may be or how bad they may be. Like maybe you still believe you got a chance. The old cliche, throw the records out when rivals play. I don't necessarily remember feeling uneasy about South Carolina's opportunity to win in that game. I thought they had just as good a chance to win as they would have had to lose.
Mhm.
Um, I think to your point, the fact that the the one of the most infamous sports moments in history happened less than 12 hours before kickoff. I mean, it
Yeah,
was an early kick. Um,
yep.
Players were already emotional in their own way about their coach knowing that he wasn't going to be there. And you had obviously a lot of immaturity. I can't speak fully for them. I know Langston, you mentioned him. He's done a great podcast series on the fight and what that meant, and being able to give a little bit more inside football, and maybe inside the psyche of the players at the time of what was going on. But yeah, I mean, it clearly was something that could have been avoided, but you just had too much immaturity in the team at that time that didn't respond well to a coach retiring and also to losing a game. And that again, they probably had a good chance to win had they, just been able to, or at least compete in a little bit better than what they did in that game, and they let the emotions overflow from them. So yeah, really, really sat in to the Holtz era.
Yeah.
But I just can't help but be frustrated as a fan, and be frustrated, as an empath for Holtz and the Holtz family, because if not for some personal family issues,
Some
who
headbutting, if you
knows?
will.
Who knows
Yeah.
where the Lou Holtz tenure is remembered. We got those 2 years, and those were really, really, really special years that, those that were alive and got to experience, Tampa and those bowl games and those wins over Ohio State. I like to say the one thing Clemson and Ohio State, or Clemson and South Carolina, have in common is beating the hell out of Ohio State in bowl game. Um, so you always have that, but it's hard to not look back and think those final years, man, what could have been had Skip maintained the offensive coordinator role.
Yeah.
The offense had a little bit more rhythm to it. There were some games that were winnable that they lost just because they looked lost as a team,
Yeah.
and that came from Lou not quite being all there all the time,
Yeah, and I
sadly.
mean, like you touched on, those teams could start out strong. They just could not finish in the month of November for whatever
Yep.
reason, one thing or another. But
Yep.
I think overall, his legacy at South Carolina, do you think it's an overall positive one, or do you think that it's marred?
Overall positive. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's positive because he elevated the program to a point where a coach of the caliber of Steve Spurrier felt he could go there and do a job. Like,
Hmm.
if Lou Holtz doesn't win the Outback Bowl, I don't know that Steve Spurrier looks at the job the same way. I think
Yeah.
he saw the opportunity there. He saw that they were a program that could compete. I mean, look, in 90 in 94, or excuse me, 92, when Steve Tannehill takes over, God rest his soul too. Um, they almost beat the Gators in the swamp that
Yeah.
year, if not for an overthrown halfback pass. That's the one play everybody remembers. And
Yeah.
and fast forward almost 10 years later, and they're down in the swamp again, and lose first year, or lose second year, excuse me, with an opportunity to win, race out to a 21-0 lead. So,
And if I
I
remember
think he
correctly, the play everybody, I didn't watch that game, but the play everybody always talks about, Kalimba had a chance for a wide open pick six and dropped it.
that's one of them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They had a chance to really put the nail in the coffin of that game. Now, obviously, Florida under Spurrier at the time, they could score at will. So you were never fully safe. But yeah, I think that's one of those things. I do remember that was a moment to, like, really could have put the game away, and potentially mentally taken Florida out of the game,
Yeah.
and it just didn't happen. Just didn't happen. But
Yeah.
I think the lasting legacy for Holtz at South Carolina is that he elevated the program just enough and was successful just enough to show that a guy like Steve Spurrier could come in and do what he does. And obviously we know there the rest is history, even though he may have had a not exactly the same, but a similar departure that left a bad taste in a lot of folks' mouths.
Yeah. Well, what would you say your favorite memory of Lou Holtz is from you personally? You said you got to interview him at least once. What any one particular memory of that of him or even that era sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, just being a student reporter for a brief period. I'll tell myself I don't care. The statute of limitations is over. I was writing for the Gamecock at the time of the push off game with Rod Gardner, who he's admitted that he pushed off. So yeah, that's what we call it now. It is the push off game, and I was so mad that I walked out of the press box and I did not write the sidebar article I was supposed to write. So that was my last assignment for the Gamecock student newspaper that particular day. So I think a lasting memory or something that I appreciate. I mean, I got to meet Lou and interview him. He wouldn't remember me. I was a student at the time. I didn't put myself out there enough to be a regular interviewer for him, but I did ask questions in press conferences. And so those were really cool. I guess that the lasting memory that I can have, for me, is that he made Gamecock football fun again at a time that I was growing into being an adult, and I got to enjoy the games with my parents, who took me to those early games and the early, they had been going to games for, years in the 80s. And I'd always hear stories as a kid that, not old enough to go and hang with my parents and their friends that were going to tailgate for games. So I think what I remember is starting college, being old enough to be in a place where I could understand what was happening. I could see understood the historical momentum of those Outback Bowl wins, actually being at Raymond James Stadium for them, sharing those times and memories with my friends and my family. I think those are the things that I probably will hold dearest in it. And as you get older, and watching college football and being a Gamecock fan, by God, is not easy. The one thing that I've been able to take with me, and doing media certainly helped, because it really helped me shed a lot of the insane fandom that I had, the irrational fandom that I had, and helped me be a little bit more professional about it all, and kind of, step back and see things as they were. South Carolina's obviously struggled, and they struggled this past year, in a year that they were expected to be a team competing for the playoff. But really what it all comes down to on those game days, you're not in control of what's going to happen. Like, we can all talk till we're blue in the face. We can have the strategy. We can have all the things we think are going to work on a game day. But the only thing that you can be sure of is that you're going to go out on a day and you're going to hang out with people that you love and that you want to spend time with. And then there's going to be a football game. And regardless of what happens in that game, you still get to go back and hang out with those folks. And at least you get to share in the euphoria, or you get to share in the misery of what just happened. But I think, what those couple of years under Holtz helped, at the time I didn't quite get it because I was still a young man, and it took me a few more years to fully grasp it. But it's the moment that you get to share with people. And that's what, Lou Holtz brought to South Carolina. He gave memories, he gave moments that Gamecock fans had not had to that point. Like, he made history. They had the biggest turnaround in college football from 1999 to 2000. 0-11 to 8-4. They won New Year's Day bowl games against a traditional power in Ohio State. He got John Cooper fired. It didn't matter. They brought Jim Tressel in. They beat him too.
Now, that's the one thing, real quick, Michael, that I'm going to tell you, is that one thing we are good at is getting other head coaches and assistant coaches fired.
Yeah. It's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah. Will Muschamp.
Yeah, although Phil Fulmer might have more to do with Majors getting fired than South Carolina did in that moment, but that certainly didn't help. It certainly didn't help old Majors for that one. But et tu Brute from for the Tennessee Vols there.
Right.
Anybody that's listening that understands that. Yeah, man, he got shanked. He got stabbed in the back on that one. But hey, it worked out for Tennessee. They ended up winning a national title a few years later. So
a couple of years of Peyton Manning will, make you forget about those.
And he wasn't even the one that won the title.
That
will always mess with me, man. Like, what a Hall of Fame quarterback in college that is known for Tennessee. You could fool a lot of people that didn't pay attention at that time. That you could fool a lot of people in trivia, and they would think that Peyton Manning was the national championship winning quarterback for Tennessee, and it was not. It was not.
Yep.
T. Martin got a national championship, and he got the hold of the record for the highest completion percentage in college against South Carolina.
Oh Lord. Oh
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah,
Yeah.
we could go all day, but no, for real, like for me at least on that, final point, I think it is the memories that I got to share with family and friends of that, and just underlining that that's really what all this is about, like
Yeah.
the moments and the personal time we get to spend with people that we care about, wrapped around a football game. So,
Yeah. It brings you together. That's for sure.
mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm-hmm.
without it, you and I probably wouldn't be buddies. I'll tell you that.
I don't know, man.
Maybe,
We'd find some stuff to
oh yeah.
talk about. We'd find
Well,
some music we could talk about.
that was the gateway, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Gave
So
you a little taste.
exactly. That was kind of the intersection right there for us to becoming friends. But speaking of which, my friend, this has been a good one, and really appreciate this. Again, big thanks to you. Looking forward to the schedule release for Nashville Nights this summer. Definitely come out and check it out at Steel Hands Brewery in Casey, South Carolina. Starting up, like you said, this June, and
Yeah.
can't wait to get out of it. Big thanks also to Wes and Chris over at Gamecock Central for allowing me to promote this on their message boards. Uh, Got to give them a shout out as well. And Michael, can't guarantee when, but hopefully we can definitely do this again sometime, my friend.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Thanks for asking me to do this, and it's
Thank
kind
you
of
for
like
doing
riding a
it.
bike. Yeah, man, it's kind of like riding a bike. It's fun to scratch the itch. I get asked a lot, do you miss radio? And the truth is, yeah, I do. I do miss it. There's some days, especially when there's breaking news and there's something fun going on, that I miss kind of being in the fire of the breaking news and stuff that's going on around the football program. But um, I'm happy where I am now, and I get to blend both worlds. So it's it's a good thing for sure.
Absolutely. So, all right, buddy. Well, it is getting late and I got an early start tomorrow. So I will be a zombie at work. You, my friend, have a good one. We will talk, I'm sure.
Yeah, man. Thanks, dude.
Ah, all right. Appreciate it,
What
bud.
was that the finale of the podcast? I didn't know whether that was us just talking or whether you would
Nope,
or
that
you
was the
had
fin
that
well,
was the finale of
technically
the
that was
podcast.
supposed to be the finale, but now is the finale as I hit the record button. All right, y'all be good.